Sarah said. Today I'm presenting my dance history research about Japanese ideals found in Michio Ito's choreography and technique. So to begin, we must understand that every culture is unique in that they create their own values and ideals that their citizens live by. New historicism is the frame of analysis which I use for this research, and that basically says that you can connect any work to its original time and place of origin. And that provides an insight to the culture and what it values. And since dance is a product of culture, new historicism can be used to see the values of when and where the work comes from. The values that I've researched in this research are Makoto, Yugen, Iki, and Inyo. Those are Japanese words, and I apologize if I pronounce them wrong. But the overall idea of these values reveals the characteristics of the Japanese culture and how it is perceived by others. Sorry, I lost my spot. Understanding these ideals will identify their influence on Ito's work. So this is Michio Ito. He was born in Japan in 1892. He immigrated to the US to create his own modern choreography. He's most known for his technique he created called the 10 gestures of the arms. This technique is used in all of his choreography. Today we'll be looking at his works, the Scriabin Preludes 5 and 6, Prayer and Warrior, and also his 10 gestures. This includes a Laban movement analysis of Michio Ito's, of all the things I just said. Laban movement analysis was developed by Rudolf von Laban in the 1900s. It is a recognized way to describe and analyze dance through the elements of body, energy, space, and shape. The purpose of my research is to show that a critical analysis of Michio Ito's Scriabin Preludes 5 and 6 through the new historicism perspective will demonstrate the influence of Japanese cultural ideals in Ito's choreographic philosophy. How I gathered my information for this research was by looking at different articles and videos, written and recorded, peer-reviewed, and also having an interview with Sarah Donahue, a former repertory dance theater member, and also watching several videos of repertory dance theater, who are the ones that perform Ito's work in America, to answer these following questions. The questions are, how does new historicism inform a discussion on dance? What are the Japanese cultural ideals linked to Ito's work? And how does a critical analysis of Scriabin Preludes 5 and 6 demonstrate Japanese cultural ideals? And here's just a little visual to show that combining all of these different points together will hopefully show us the influence of Japanese cultural ideals in Ito's choreographic philosophy. So as mentioned before, new historicism is the frame of analysis that I've used in my research. It connects the work being analyzed, in this case the Scriabin Preludes and the 10 gestures technique, to its original time and place of origin. It will show how the work is a direct reflection of the culture that it's from, which is Japan. New historicism can do this by looking at a culture's political, economical, religious, scientific, intellectual, and artistic ideals within that culture. To understand a piece, it is necessary to understand the culture that produced it. If dance reflects culture, Ito's work, through a new historicism perspective, will reveal that Ito used Japanese cultural ideals in his choreographic philosophy. So now moving on to the different Japanese ideals that I've researched. The first ideal that I'd like to discuss is called Makoto, which means sincerity and truthfulness. It's exactly what it sounds like, the idea of being sincere and true to yourself. It is based on a singleness of mind and telling the truth with your whole being. It comes from a belief in Confucianism that states one outer self and inner self should be in a corresponding relationship. Inner feelings should be the same as one's outward actions. An example that we see of Makoto in Japanese culture is a haiku poem. Although haiku poems are short, each syllable and each word in the poem represents an overlying theme or ideal. The next ideal is Yogen. Yogen means profound grace, in this case referring to rigorous discipline. There's a special subcategory of Gyogen called No, which specifically alludes to rigorous discipline in dance and music. The diction, gestures, gaits, and dance movements that are seen are highly stylized, and that is seen as admirable in the Japanese culture. This is seen in Ito's work, but in an overall example of Gyogen in the Japanese culture is calligraphy, the tea ceremony, theater, and martial arts, in that each one requires an extreme amount of rigor and discipline. The third ideal that I've researched is called Iki, which deals with opposites in aesthetic feelings. So sweet, sour, male, female, flashy, soft, things like that. Quiet, loud. An example that is seen of Iki in Japanese culture is a small Zen tea house in Japan that is made of contrasting materials. It's made of different kinds of wood and bamboo, and although these materials are contrasting, put together, they create something new, just like this Zen tea house. The last ideal is Inyo. Inyo is similar to yin and yang in Chinese culture, and it also deals with these complementary opposites, but more so that they are becoming together as a whole. So the symbol for Inyo are these two different circles. There's two different symbols, but we can see that there's two very specific parts. We have the red circle in the middle and the white circle on the outside, but it's not showing red circle here, white circle here. They're together, they're contrasting, but they create a oneness. So more about Michio Ito. He immigrated to the United States to create his own modern choreography. He was thriving in America because Orientalism was very popular at that time. They were very fascinated with the East. He was in the movie industry. This is a movie that he was in. And he was surrounded by other people that were interested in developing movement and art that was representation of their internal self. So basically the modern art movement. Sadly, when Pearl Harbor was bombed, he was arrested and went back to Japan. But while he was in America, he created the 10 gestures technique. There are two different variations of the technique. There's A and B. Each gesture there's 10 gestures in each technique, in each set, and each one is very specific. It's numbered. There's a specific way to get there, a specific way your hands are supposed to be. Getting to each movement is very linear and smooth, each one flowing constantly into the next. A is described by Ito as masculine. It is seen as open and strong. I will now have Lauren and Emmerich come up and show the A set of movement that Ito has created. And you'll notice that it's very open. The openness, that's 10, openness of 10 and 7, your elbows are even going out into the space. Now contrasting with B, B is recognized by Ito as the feminine version of his technique. It is seen as closed off and softer than set A. So now they will show set B. hopefully you can see that in set B there are definite changes. 10 is here in A, but 10 is here in B, and even the covering of the eyes is more closed off than set A. But as you can see, either gender can do A or B, and that's what Ito believed as well. In fact, in his choreography, you could be doing something A with one hand and something B in the other hand. We do that in the Ito piece we're working on in CBE. So yeah, when put in choreography, his gestures are manipulated and given a different order. One arm is doing a completely different gesture than the other arm. As we recall from the Japanese ideal in Yo, two complementary opposites come together as one. And I think that is the most important thing about these 10 gesture techniques is that we see that. We see the masculine or open, strong movements coming together with the soft and more subdued B movements. The sets are separate things but coexist within each other. This goes right along with the ideal of Iki, which expresses the same idea of the opposites being a whole. I'll now move on into the dances that I've analyzed with Laban movement analysis. Again, Laban movement analysis is a way to describe dance. It's said as a neutral way to describe dance across time and culture. It explains the body positioning, what body parts are moving, what your effort is while you're dancing, if you're free-flowing or if you're controlled, if you're bound. The spacing, like what levels are you making with your body, what does that signify, and the shaping of your body. And using all of those combined allowed me to make meaning from these pieces, which were the Scriabin preludes 5 and 6. So we'll move on to, this is just some screenshots from Scriabin prelude 5, Prayer. It's a short piece, less than 2 minutes long, and although it is short, it is filled with intriguing and meaningful movement. The piece is about a medieval page that goes to church to worship her patron saint. The page worships holy images and shows reverence. The reverent and holy images were created from Ito's 10 gesture technique, but manipulated. Many of the movements involve the hands being held together, as seen here in this picture, which to me signify prayer, or the hands being held to the head, signifying thoughtfulness. The arm gestures are very direct and light, and the focus is also very clear in that she spends several moments of the piece looking upwards in the direction of what she is worshiping, or looking down in reverence. Many movements were performed with a bound flow, meaning that the energy of the movement was controlled and withheld. She was peaceful and very calm, as there were no wild, free-flowing, or uncontrollable movements. The expressiveness of her torso as she is retreating is also key in portraying reverence. She also does several light air moments with her torso advancing as if she is seeing or communing with that higher power. There are several moments also in the piece where her palms are outward, which signify an offering. The movement of this piece has connections to several of the Japanese ideals discussed earlier. The most similar ideals to the movement are Makoto and Yogen. Makoto is expressed by the singleness of mind and the sincerity of the piece, the direct focus of the dancer. Every movement in the piece has this ecclesiastical feeling to it. Yogen, or profound grace, is shown by the movements being highly stylized and specific. Sarah Donahue, who was the soloist for this piece, said that when the Ito movement masters came to teach them the piece, they were very specific about where the hands needed to be. Like, it's very important to them. So that shows the Yogen ideal. There's also unity in music and dance, which comes back to the ideal of No, which was the subcategory of Yogen, and that dance and music are very highly stylized and go together. The next piece that I analyzed was Scriabin Prelude 6, Warrior. It was also used, many manipulations of the 10 gestures technique. This dance was done as a male quartet when performed by RDT. It is very different from Prelude 5, Prayer, in that the movement is very strong. It is about the fierce and joyous love of a warrior. It is all unison, which to me portrays community, or like a strong sense of community. There's a moment where all 4 men are advancing directly towards the audience, and their arm gestures are very strong. They're like Their bodies are sensitive to the music, stamping along with the rhythm and the beat. Their shoulders and their stance are broad and wide, and their torsos are advancing to wherever they are traveling to, whether it be in a circle or whether it be towards the audience. They demand attention from the audience while commanding the stage space, as their presence radiates pride and power. Their movement matches right along with the music, again, as it is right along with the music. They're just stamping along to the rhythm. It is strong and demanding. The Japanese ideals of Yogen and Makoto are also seen in this piece, as every movement is very specific to the theme of a warrior, with strong, demanding, stamping, like charging. It's very strong and very warrior-like. Yogen is seen again as the movements, I just said that. Makoto is evident in that everything goes along with the theme that Ito was envisioning. So looking at both these dance poems, it is clear that they are very different from each other. They have different feelings and themes to them. Although separate, they combine with other pieces in the concert, create an entire concert of different themes. This is the ultimate example of Iki and Inyo, the complementary opposites coming together to create one. In the RDT concert program from this specific concert, another company member, M. Colleen Holscher, states that this concert is about the contrast in our world, the fast pace and the simple, the yin and yang, or Inyo of life. Men and women, power and subtlety, performance and pedestrian. So we can see this diagram again where bringing Michio Ito's choreography, knowing the Japanese ideals and what they represent in the culture, new historicism, and a Laba movement analysis, that shows us that the influence of Japanese cultural ideals in Ito's choreographic philosophy is present. It is clear that Ito used cultural ideals from Japan in his work, and that his work is a product of the Japanese culture.